Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are recording.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Good evening, council, good evening, staff, and again, good evening, public. We'll call the regular council meeting to order. And item 2.1, this meeting is open to statements from no more than 5 members of the public of no more than 2 minutes in length each. Is there anybody lined up to put public input, Mr. Taylor?
There's no one lined up, but if anyone from the gallery would like to speak at this time, please use the raise hand icon or type into the chat box. Mr. Mayor, I think we can continue.
Thank you. We'll move to item 3.1. Are there any late additions or deletions from the agenda, council?
No late items, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I need someone to move that the February 16th regular council meeting agenda be adopted. Councillor Leach, second Councillor Howe. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have two delegations this evening. The first one is Tourism Lillooet Association update on deliverables for the District of Lillooet fee-for-service agreement and their recent activities.
Thank you, Stefan. You may join the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, district staff, and members of the public. Unfortunately, I've run into some somewhat intractable technical difficulties, and so I had hoped to be presenting the slideshow, but unfortunately my computer does not support Microsoft Teams, as I found out very late, and I've been unable to get the slideshow onto my phone.
Stefan, I've got a copy of it here. Would you like me to throw it up for you?
If possible, that would be great. Thank you very much. It is quite a nice picture, so nicer to look at than blurry faces on little screens.
All right, just give me a moment here. All right, can everyone see that? Thank you.
Yeah. So a lovely photo of Big Slide, the 135 million-year-old seabed across from the farm here, and some lovely salmon berry in the spring. Yes, so thank you, Mayor and Council, very much for the opportunity to come before you and report on the results of the fee-for-service of this past summer, which was directed by you on July 13th to explore the possibilities for a fee-for-service between Tourism Lillooet and the district. So this year has been, it's been what it has been, an unusual one, and while a bit of a pause as far as international visitation and the tour buses, which are such a frequent presence in town, are concerned, has actually been a pause. But in some other respects, particularly the domestic travelers that we've seen, it's been a step in the other direction. People in the Lower Mainland have obviously been quite eager to get out of their apartments and into new and beautiful places, and Lillooet is one of the places that they have found as an outlet. We really appreciate the foresight of Mayor and Council in undertaking work this past summer to begin preparing for the eventual reopening of our world more broadly, and beginning preparations for the tourism sector that we feel will be very useful in coming years. So, brief summary of what I will be trying to cover tonight. Just a bit of history and context of the organization, a little bit on the nature of the project and some of the work that was delivered in association with it. And then some of the preliminary data that we've collected based on the success of the website, as well as next steps. So yeah, so moving to the next slide. So Tourism Lillooet was created in as part of a successful rural dividend application in 2018. There were two other deliverables associated with that funding. The Destination Ambassador Program, which some of you may remember, and a familiarization tour geared to getting regional stakeholders into the community to see and get to know Lillooet a little bit better. The third deliverable from that program was the creation of a destination management organization, and that is Tourism Lillooet. So after the Destination Ambassador Program and familiarization tours had taken place, there was a little bit of funding left for strategic planning. Angela Bissett collected the resumes of a number of individuals who seemed like they'd be interested and able to undertake the work. And yeah, and we began our strategic planning process. So we were originally going to be undertaking that with Modus, who, as you're probably well aware, undertook your official community planning process and performed the community consultations that it required. And we recognized fairly early on that with the budget that we had available to us, that we were not going to be able to meaningfully canvass the community to really get a good sense of what attitudes were existing towards tourism in the community. What we were aware of was previous rounds of consultations, and these were helpfully provided on the district website. So there are 4 reports incorporated into the body of our strategic plan. And in particular, the 2015 Lillooet Tourism Implementation Workshop represented a 2-day workshop that had a number of members of the community present and giving their feedback. So I mean, we're not at the end of the work of understanding, you know, how people want tourism to look a decade hence or 2 decades hence in this community. But as a starting point and to kind of get the best bang for our buck, we thought that that would be a good path forward. So ultimately, and this is the next slide, we came to our mission statement. So Tourism Lillooet works to attract the right nature and number of visitors who will appreciate Lillooet's unique sense of place and the nature around us. Tourism Lillooet influences where visitors go, what they do, and collaborates with local stakeholders and partners to ensure that the experiences we choose to share are appropriate, sustainable, and remarkable. We focus our efforts and resources in 3 strategy areas. They are promoting existing market-ready experiences, improving the quality of visitor experience, and increasing awareness and support for the tourism industry in Lillooet. So with the fee-for-service of this past summer, it was a very much appreciated gesture in that it allowed us to tick all 3 of those boxes. And this seems like a good point to just move into a little bit more detail on the project. So after the direction that was received by staff on July 13th, Tourism Lillooet issued a request for proposals from a number of marketing and tourism affiliated organizations throughout the province, excuse me. And we received proposals from 4 organizations. They are listed there. It came down really to quite a close competition between the top 2. And ultimately, we chose Symphony Tourism Services. the reasoning behind the choice was that Symphony Tourism Services is a subsidiary of the Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association, which is a regional destination management organization with ties to the Caribou Chilcotin Coast Tourism Association and also directly to Destination British Columbia. And those affiliations we saw as being valuable in leveraging the eventual results of the work. And so that was a portion of the decision. The other element that was quite attractive to us, particularly in light of the fact that the fee-for-service agreement required the marketing to be directed only to resident of BC travelers, was that Symphony Tourism Services has those kinds of capabilities, and previous bodies of work in their possession allowed us to be very targeted indeed with our advertising. So yes, so having chosen them, we worked to develop deliverables consistent with the fee for service and hit upon sort of 8 broad categories, which were targeted advertising, content development, communications channels, collaboration, engagement with stakeholders, partnerships with organizations like Destination British Columbia and CCCTA, and record management. So attached to the presentation, and if you've had an opportunity to read it, is a report card, the format for which I have shamelessly lifted from the next speaker. LAFS is an organization that has a bit of operational funding to support executive directors who create these kinds of great documents. And so I hope you'll agree it provides a useful summary of the deliverables associated with this funding. So some of the highlights, quite a significant increase in content and information. Prior to the fee for service, we had a web page with 6 pages. I can't even quite recall, it was long enough ago that I can't, the content of those pages, but over the course of the activities with Symphony Tourism Services, that content was more than doubled to 17 separate pages for visitors to land on. In addition to the greater expansiveness of the pages, there's a great deal more depth in any given page. And the pages include agriculture, shopping, outdoor recreation, importantly, current travel information, which has allowed us to align our message and bring forward to guests of the community messaging consistent with the public health orders, and then maps as well, just to name a few. The advertising profiles we chose and are listed in the report card, and those enabled us again to target our advertising to resident BC travelers and ensure that we're not telling people in California who can't cross the border that they should come to Lillooet. So thankfully that didn't happen. It's a framework that helps to organize local offerings in a way that's actually useful to visitors. It's nice to have that information embodied in people, but some folks are more visual learners and definitely benefit a bit more from the ability to navigate at their own leisure as well. So yeah, so moving into what is the visitor portal. So with the design, which the members of the boards and I hope the community at large, as well as mayor and council, agree is we're very happy with it. We really wanted to let the community, and not the community, rather, sorry, the surroundings of the community speak for themselves a little bit. And and just do their thing as far as spurring interest in the area and providing potentially greater visitation through that. Nonetheless, we did want to incorporate previous iterations of brand development, and to that end, you'll notice that while Guaranteed Rugged is not splashed up there, some of the branding associated with that initiative did nonetheless make it into the website. So it's going to be a framework that is going to be invaluable in coming years as Tourism Lillooet continues to understand what all of our local communities would like to share with the outside world. It'll have a longevity as a piece of digital infrastructure that I think will extend far beyond this year or next year, and really provide a basis for further work to be hung off of. Social media, so that was, sorry, to back up a little bit. So the deliverables, while falling into those 8 categories, were very broadly with the aim of moving ahead on a website, a visitor portal, to which visitors to our community could first turn their attention for information, and then also a social media element to drive traffic to that landing page and create interest in the area. So moving on to the next slide. Yes, so this is a fairly brief summary that was given to us by War Room Incorporated, who were subcontracted by Symphony Tourism Services to undertake a social media marketing stint. And so in a 1-month period in which 6 different ads were running, they reported 250,000 separate content impressions, all to resident of BC travelers, 862 post engagements, not all of which were positive, which is worth noting, but many of which were, and above average industry engagement rates, which they felt were indicative of well-targeted marketing. As a little summary, there's work to be done. Our Facebook and Instagram accounts are at 446 and 265 followers respectively as of February 10th. There is certainly work to be done there in improving the reach of the social media accounts, because as much as the idea is to begin to develop further interest in Lillooet as a destination, another portion of it is to have a useful means by which we can begin to communicate messaging to those guests prior to their arrival, and potentially mitigate some of the negative impacts that can sometimes be associated with visitation. Some of that could be, emphasizing respectful visitation, sharing relevant information on public health orders, exposure for new businesses, and we're hopeful that as we further develop those channels, they will be a real asset to the community. Beg pardon. Since its inception, pages on visitlillooet.ca have been visited 11,000 times. So that discrepancy between the 250,000 impressions and 11,000 actual page views is apparently quite typical. Translating content seen in a social media stream into an actual follow through and a click is a bit of a dark art. the success of which is measured in single digits, followed by fractions of single digits. So 83% of the views were within British Columbia. And so we're apologetic that we weren't entirely successful in marketing to resident BC travelers. But unfortunately, this is a little bit the nature of the social media organism, that when people see something they find interesting, they will share or retweet or what have you that item. And so some of these quote unquote escapes could be attributed to what's termed organic spread, I think is the term. But notably, the page, due to the search engine optimization that was performed by Symphony Tourism Services as they were building it, has resulted in the page becoming the third result when you Google Lillooet, or search it in some other search engine like DuckDuckGo. So for a very young website, we're especially happy about that last point. Being front of mind means, yeah, people will bump into your messaging more quickly and make it more useful as a result. Some of the spin-off benefits, just before we step off that slide, have been an increased visibility for Tourism Lillooet as an organization to approach if, for instance, you are an organization that is looking to organize a bike tour through the area. A recent example is Ride of Your Life, which will be I can't remember the number of kilometers, but a massive multi-day affair, a ride from Whistler to Grand Forks, I believe it is, and we've been able to assist them in connecting with our marketing partners, in part due to the presence of this website and the point of contact that it provides for outside organizations. So, yeah, so the report card certainly goes into a bit more detail on the nature of all the deliverables, but those are best read at one's own leisure. I'm probably getting towards overtime already, but I would just like to speak briefly about next steps. So at this point in time, Tourism Lillooet is working on an operational plan that was devised in the fall of 2020. So our 2021 operational plan. And we're actively seeking funding to move projects forward in 3 categories: destination marketing, and that one's particularly important to us for the reason that it represents support of the initial investment that has been made with the fee-for-service last year. So the components: digital marketing, collaboration with DMOs, application to the DBC open pool. That work has already begun, and at the moment we are part of a partnered application to the Destination British Columbia Open Pool marketing initiative, along with Tourism Pemberton and the Bridge River Valley Communities Association, to create and market a circle tour between our communities. A foundational element of that application has been to explore how we can emphasize respectful visitation as a component of that circle tour. And so we're very hopeful that we can begin making progress towards actualizing our hope that tourism will be of economic benefit to the community, and not to any great detriment, if that makes sense. Right? Not super well formulated, but The second category is visitor services, and to that end, we applied in October to the COVID Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for funding to support the delivery of visitor services in Lillooet. The talks are ongoing. What the nature of that support will exactly look like. But it was a strong application, and we're hopeful that we will be able to bring that funding into the community. The third and most important aspect of the operational plan for this year will be continuing, or rather beginning in a more concerted way, a process of stakeholder engagement and canvassing the community. These types of community discussions are a little bit challenging to find funding for. We will continue looking for it and trying to make our way towards understanding what our community would like to share with the outside world and what that can eventually look like. The little note at the bottom there. So all of this is well and good. We are a volunteer board of 4 members and 1 ex officio representative to the District of Lillooet at this point in time. Particularly being an economic development organization in the manner that we strive to be, funding can be a challenging beast to find and use. And we find that we do focus a lot more on discussions of funding and operational requirements than on the higher level conversations, of which stakeholder engagement and partnerships is the prime example. The future of tourism in Lillooet will depend heavily on community discussions of the sort that it's difficult to find funding for. I mean, finding the balance between sort of a wholesale marketing of the area, which I think everybody on our board can agree is not our aim. Finding the balance between that and offering enough to provide interest to potential guests of our community is going to be a long road. So I mean, these are issues that are faced by all nonprofits in our community, but in the events that they are able to overcome them, nonprofits are able to alleviate burdens on local government by procuring funding from outside sources, increasing the quality of life in a given community through these efforts, and ultimately just providing an opportunity to contribute positively for members of the community. With that more or less brings us to the end. Yeah, thank you. Oh, a typo. Oh, good. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for your support, not support. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have now or later.
Thank you, Mr. Ziedler. Very well done. Nice presentation. Council, any comments, queries for Mr. Ziedler? There. How about some positive comments, you guys? Good. You got a hand up. Thank you, Stefan.
Right on. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Good. Have a good evening. Okay, we'll move on to item 4.2, the Lillooet Agricultural and Food Society, together with Volunteer Connect, are looking for a future resolution to support their application to NDIT Economic Infrastructure Fund for co-op community spaces at the community hub, and as well as a standing letter of support for grant funding. So we're happy that they're here today to present to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah and Kim. You may unmute and turn on your cameras. Thank you.
I'm going to let Sarah go. There you go, Sarah.
Okay, I don't have as much to say on the topic as Kim. I think Kim's done a lot of work and discussed this with the district before, the idea of the community hub. So we're looking for, it's freezing for me. Is it fine for everyone else?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still seeing you, Sarah.
Okay. Yeah, so Kim and I are planning on putting together a couple of applications to the Economic Infrastructure Fund, as well as a bigger one to the Co-op Community Spaces to fund this community hub idea. I don't know, I think that there's been a lot of kind of rumors around town about what the potential is and what might be happening, but we are in discussion with Seed to Culture about using the Mel's space on Main Street. So we do need obviously district approval for that. So we're looking for a resolution of support for the community hub, which doesn't, I don't think, involve anything more than just saying that the district will support the idea, as well as a letter of support from the district. And then the third thing that we were hoping for was a standing agreement for letters of support for any applications that we're putting in for funding for the community hub, just because it makes our lives easier if we have that letter that's kind of already been approved, and we can just include it in whatever application we're writing. I think that's about all I have to say. Kim, do you have anything to add to that?
Just to say, I'm not sure if all the councils are aware of the Community Connect Hub, but it's basically an innovation hub and a place to create economic development in one place. And based on all of the reports since 2008, which I just reviewed, that has been an item that has been recommended many, many times since 2008. All the way up to 2020. And so this hub will create that space to provide support to existing businesses and new businesses and businesses that will be coming into the community. And it also is to support Lillooet Grown, Lillooet Made, and Lillooet Places. So it's around agriculture, the arts and craft area, and also tourism. So there's a lot of discussion that's been happening, and we're just in the phase to kind of start launching some of that if we can over the next 6 months. And SLRD, just to let you know, they're also supporting it and providing an application to the NDIT to hire a coordinator to work with Sarah, to work with the artists, to work with Tourism Lillooet, to try and bring this to action. Yeah, to take the idea and move it into action.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Kim. This is a expansion or a pickup in discussions that we had at our last tour of the various farms. I think there was a discussion that you folk were looking at a centralized place in which the various farms could bring their product and more centralize it in and around Lillooet. It's not a virtual office, in other words, is what I'm hearing. It's also a storage distribution for product. Am I correct in that?
I think that the storage and distribution will probably, LAFS will continue to work on the storage facility as a separate project, just because having trucks and those sorts of things downtown Lillooet is pretty difficult, like in terms of logistics, just getting large, if we actually are aggregating and are getting large amounts of food moved around, which would be awesome to see that happening, like just people working together and getting more stuff moved, because lots of our farmers do drive over the Duffy, all like, 2 or 3 of them in a weekend down to Whistler markets and Vancouver markets even. So I think that idea will be a little bit separate, but we are, as Laughs, very interested in having some commercial kitchen space where sort of local agricultural businesses, or even agricultural businesses that haven't really started yet, as Kim said, like a place to sort of incubate new projects that people could come and rent fairly cheaply, and then also a place where we could combine some of our programming, things like the gleaning program. Kamloops has amazing stuff going on with their gleaning program, where they turn the unwanted fruit from people's yards into popsicles and then they sell those, which is such a cool little business. So there's lots of kind of options. I think that if people had a space to create in that was accessible, there are lots of options, and value added is always a better way to sell your stuff if you can as a producer. So that's kind of Laugh's piece in that puzzle.
Yeah,
The agricultural side, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The agricultural side is just one component. There's also the art and makers component, and the tourism side of it, and like a gallery that showcases our community. And then there's the incubation hub, which is working with all the partners and other people out in the community to try to increase economic development in the community in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way.
Good, thanks. After I'm done, Councillor Leach has queries. Yeah, I guess I was getting ahead of myself. I was looking at some pretty significant movements of product in and out of here. So, but I'm glad it's still on the planning books. But obviously, this is exciting, and I'm sure the rest of council will have some comments, but we'll have staff put that together with you folk in terms of how best to bring it to council at the next meeting if possible for the support that you need. Councillor Leach?
Thank you. A couple of things. I went on at the not the UBCM for 2020, but the previous one, UBCM, I went on a tour with the Minister of Agriculture, Lana Popham, to various farms down in the Lower Mainland when we were there. And at that time, she had announced that the province was putting together, I guess they were, I'm losing my words, not testing, but I remember there was 3 different tiers, and it was specifically for community kitchens. And I believe there was one in the interior that was actually put together. And I'm just wondering, is that part of the fund from the NDIT, or is this a separate one that I'm thinking of? I'm just hoping you can refresh my memory, because it's been a while and I haven't really looked at this in some time, so I apologize.
It wouldn't be for that funding specifically. The one that we're applying to for NDIT is their Economic Infrastructure Fund to support that. And then there's also a co-op community spaces fund that would be available. Right now, I'm not aware of any food hub funding specifically that is out there, although I'm always kind of keeping an eye out. And we did apply to a couple different things for our cold storage as a separate kind of thing. And that, yeah, so this would be smaller scale, I guess, than a lot of that kind of.
The co-op community spaces is now starting to ring a bell, and I think that's one that I'm actually thinking of, because I know that she had been pushing it for quite some time, and then it was starting to just finally get off the ground a couple of years ago. So no, that was basically what and then the other thing too is this is specifically, the community hub is tailored to agriculture business and not for profits. Am I correct? I think sometimes when we say community hub, because a lot of the public in town have heard of like the Ashcroft hub, and I think that has a lot of not-for-profits in it. So I just want some clarity on that as well.
So, yeah. Oh, sorry. I can talk to that if you like. Yeah, so basically the concept of the Community Connect Hub is to support the not-for-profit sector in Lillooet by having a space and having resources, including staff, to assist the not-for-profits to do what they do in the community. So having a space with paid staff that will help the not-for-profits in the community, but a focus right now is on the training aspect of this to build competency in the community around agriculture, arts, and tourism to start with, because those are the things that are kind of like Lillooet made. And so we wanted to, that'll be the front of it. Like it's a social enterprise, so it's different from just an enterprise, like just a regular business, because the work that happens and the money that's gathered in the retail space or in whatever way through programs and things like that will go back into the hub to keep supporting the community in sustainable economic development. So it is supporting, because of not-for-profits, I want to tell you, like, they provide so much service in our town, more than other communities, I think. And we just, a lot of times we don't really realize that that's a huge economic driver. One, just from the volunteer hours, but two, the staffing that a lot of these not-for-profits have, and also the grants that they bring into the community. So I think our community is very, very strong because of the not-for-profits, but everyone is struggling. And so having this hub that can support all of those people and, you know, be able to hire an administrator or a bookkeeper and an event planner that can work with the not-for-profits and help them in their job is kind of the idea. It's a social enterprise. So it's a business making part of it, but there's also a social aspect to the business.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Kim. So I guess just to follow up with that, maybe as an ask for all of council, because I don't know if the rest of the council feels the same way I do. I just feel really out of the loop. And when this comes to the table at the NDIT, because I am the rep that sits on that committee, to be able to have some more information to speak to it if questions do come up would be really helpful. So maybe just a short a presentation or an email or something to all of council, I think would be really helpful for us to support this.
That's
as well.
good. We have been speaking with Kevin and Jeremy on this idea, so they are aware of the concept. But right now, I'm just putting together a proposal for the SLRD, and they're going to submit on our behalf to the NDIT for the Economic Capacity Building Fund to be able to hire a person. And so then once I had finished that proposal, which I'm supposed to be doing and finishing tonight, I will send out draft copies to Jeremy, and hopefully he will pass them on to Mayor and Council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, folk. Any more comments, questions, clarification for council? I hear none. I want to thank you both for your presentation. We wish you success, and can be assured council staff will bring us something in very quick order in order to maintain the support levels that you're seeking. Thank you. And you have a good evening. Okay, folks, we'll go to item 6.1 and adoption of the minutes. I need someone to move that the February 1st, 2021 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as present. Who will so move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Wiebe. Any errors or omissions? They're hearing none. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Item 8.1, rise and report. These are calls for resolution for the 2021 Southern Interior Local Government Association, SILGA, and a verbal report from the CAO. We believe, before I turn it over, that we have some very good recommendations to take to SILGA. We have two representatives, one which we'll confirm tonight to carry these forward, and we have the hope that they will embrace them and then carry them on to UBCM for later in the year. Mr. Deniger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everyone should have these in the agenda package, so I won't repeat 4 pages of information. But at the committee of the whole, there were a couple changes noted to refine a couple of these resolutions. And I believe our corporate officer can put up on screen some modifications to them, as well as one we discovered when we were reviewing these again between meetings, is there was some very specific references to Lillooet, which make us feel great, but they don't really apply to the whole province. So we've changed them to just say rural BC communities there. You'll see it in number 2 there on the screen, just so that every small community can embrace this resolution. The one that was discussed in the committee of the whole, number 3, it's changed from company housing to, as you can see here, public sector essential service personnel housing. And we noticed that the mention of RCMP and medical staff is a repeat of the middle whereas. And as well, we're looking at the guidelines from UBCM. And part of what we have to provide if these get through this meeting to SILGA and UBCM is a 1-pager background document that can provide further details about how we got to this resolution, so that we can mention some of the things that were talked about in committee of the whole and anything else the council wants to add to that document. So that would be going to SILGA by the 26th. So number 3 there, any concerns from council? Because now's the time to make the last changes.
Okay, are you talking about number 3 or number 5?
Number 3 first.
Okay, number 3. Council, how does it sit with you as we discussed in our committee of the whole? Okay, hearing none, we can move on, Mr. Deniger.
Okay, thank you. Number 4 is unchanged. Number 5, committee of the whole did speak to wanting to ensure that we're as strong as we could be. So we took some of the wishy-washy language out there. You can see struck out in red. We just want them to deal with the issue, not explore taking steps, just do something. And then we also added in the whereas important reference to the Indigenous governments and their First Nations court systems and reform programs. So we're more inclusive, that everything is being taken account of. And we added in at the bottom there, you see we added in Canada's and British Columbia's justice system. As I mentioned, criminal matters are actually of a federal nature. They're handled through the federal courts, whereas all other things like land and family law and so forth are handled through the BC court system. Although they work together, we thought we should mention both in that way.
Okay,
So,
before I throw it open, can I make a suggestion on number 5? I would switch Indigenous with First Nations and say in First Nations government created, and Indigenous court system is the terminology that's been.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, council?
Councillor Leach here. I am appreciative of those changes, and I think that I am okay with it like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from councillors? I've got you at the bottom of the screen, so I'll have to look here. Okay, looks like we are good. That's it for the changes. Mr. Deniger?
Thank you. So if that's good, then I do believe there's a resolution recommended through from Committee of the Whole. You'll see it there at the top of 8.1, that the following resolutions be endorsed. So that's for you to motion, second, and vote on.
What I'll do, if council is okay with it, 8.1 is a call for resolutions for 2021 SILGA, and basically that the following resolutions be endorsed for consideration at the 2021 SILGA convention. And I'll just put the titles, mention the titles, and as written underneath the titles, as per the changes from our COW. So if you keep that in mind, we need someone to move that Title 1 vacant land property tax, as well as Title II, dilapidated Z240 mobile homes disposal fee, 2-year reprieve, and Title III, housing, that we changed that company housing, right? The title. Housing in small and rural communities.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, sorry, the CAO is still muted. So it is public sector essential service personnel housing.
Public sector. Okay, as Mr. Taylor mentioned. And number 4, funding maintenance of community halls and recreation centers. And Title 5, criminal justice reform for repeat convicted offenders. That title stayed the same, Mr. Taylor?
That title did stay the same.
Thank you. So I need someone to move those, please. Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Any further discussion? Oh, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Lots of good hard work there. And Silga reps, you've got your work cut out for you, and we expect you to come back fully with positive news. Thank you. Okay, item 9, correspondence and petitions. Anybody wish an item to be removed? We have 2. Yes, Councillor Howe.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to remove number 2, or letter number 2. Oh, my apologies. Sorry. Ugh. Letter number 1, the letter of support for City of Vernon.
Mr. Mayor, you are still muted as well.
There we go. Yeah, Councillor Huffle.
We'll finish it up with, I'd like to remove letter number 2, please.
Okay. Letter number 2 becomes 17.2 of new business. Okay, then we don't need to have a resolution on accepting the correspondence. Is that correct, Mr. Taylor?
How about we just accept the staff report for information?
Where's the staff report? Oh, the info correspondence. Yeah, okay. I need someone to move that the staff report dated February 10th be received for information. Who will move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Call the question. Those in favor? It's Councillor Huffle. Thank you. Okay, item 11.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So last year we did open up a new position. It is the legislative assistant. That role has evolved over the period of the last year, and staff have decided to change the title of the role to Deputy Corporate Officer. Now that role allows whoever is filling the role to be able to take over the duties of the corporate officer in their absence to make sure that there is no disruption of service. So staff have already made the change to the title, but do require that council appoint an individual to the role. So staff are requesting that Kimberly G be appointed to the role of Deputy Corporate Officer effective February 16th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I need someone to move that Kimberly G be appointed to the role of Deputy Corporate Officer effective February 16, 2021. Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Huffle. Any discussion from council? I see none. Therefore, I call the question. All those in favor? Great, carried. Congratulations and welcome, Kimberly. 11.2, resolution of support for a Silga Association Executive Board candidate. I would like someone to move that Councillor Jamie Howe's candidacy for the position of Director on the Executive Board of the Southern Interior Local Government Association, SILGA, be supported. Who will so move? Councillor Leach, second. Councillor Wiebe. Any further discussion? Okay, we expect big things, Councillor Howe, especially with these resolutions we're taking for. We expect wins to come home. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor Howe. 11.3. SLRD is Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw to increase maximum tax requisition, Lillooet and area refuse disposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the resolution that was based off of the presentation at Committee of the Whole from Suzanne from the SLRD. Council asked questions at that time, and this is the resolution out of that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So I'm seeking that staff recommends that council give participating area approval by consenting on behalf of the electors of the District of Lillooet to the adoption of the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District of proposed SLRD bylaw 1703-2021, cited as Lillooet and area refuse disposal, local service conversion, and establishment bylaw number 508/1993, amendment bylaw number 1703-2021. And there will be an examination on this afterward. Okay. And that staff be directed to notify the SLRD of the District of Lillooet's consent. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second. Councillor Howe. Any discussion? Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 12, bylaws and resolutions. We have the financial plan bylaw 2021-001.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to try and save everybody a little bit of headache here and kind of combine everything into one. There's 7 bylaws, I think I counted them right. All of them, the financial plan bylaw that we discussed at the Committee of the Whole on the 28th of January. Together with that would come the water, sewer, and garbage rate bylaw, the parcel tax bylaws, and I've completely forgotten what the other one was, sorry. Parcel tax, financial plan, and the 3 utility bylaws. All of them include a 1.1% increase in rates. So the municipal property tax rate is a 1.1% increase in revenue. The water, sewer, and garbage rates are a 1.1% increase in the fees from the 2020 fees, which again were frozen at the 2019 fees. So there was no increase last year. Without changing those bylaws, property owners would be facing more than an 18% increase in their water and sewer rates for 2021. That was outlined in that 10-year bylaw for utility rates. And then the parcel tax bylaws, we have the water service parcel tax bylaw and the sewer service parcel tax bylaw. Again, both of those, we're recommending a 1.1% increase in those rates. There previously was a 3rd parcel tax bylaw, the Central Lillooet Sewer Treatment Plant bylaw. That's now expired. We've paid that debenture in full as of 2020. So property owners will no longer see that parcel tax on their property tax billing. In fact, anybody that paid last year will actually see a credit on their tax billing for a portion of that in this coming year, because we with the MFA, we did receive some of that, what we had paid, we received some of that back in actuarial earnings. So they will see a small credit on their property tax billings for that parcel tax. So again, all of those bylaws together, there's a 1.1% increase recommended by staff. staff aren't recommending any lower increase than that. Council is, of course, free to change that to whatever you see fit. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. LaRue. Given that the financial plan bylaw has got 4 sections and we moved to adoption, I'm going to break that into 2. The utility rate bylaw, when I deal with them, all of them go to a 3rd reading, and we still have an opportunity where they come back to council for a final adoption. So let's see how this goes and see if there's any discussion around. So item 12.1, financial plan bylaw 2021. Need someone to move that financial plan bylaw 2021-001 be introduced and read a first time, and that financial plan bylaw number 2021-001 be read a second time. And number 3, that financial plan bylaw number 2021-001 be read a third time. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Any discussion on those 3 items? Councillor Hoppel?
Through the mayor, Joni, can I just ask a question about a revenue? Is this the time that's okay? Page 71 of 95. And my question is, the revenue, the municipal property taxes from 2021 to 2022 is actually about 7%. Is that amount part of the funding that we will be receiving because of COVID, or how does that amount come to be?
Through the mayor, so we do focus always on our current year budget, or hopefully next year's budget when we get on time with things. But it is a 5-year financial plan. However, as we saw with the cute puppy picture at the committee of the whole meeting, we can't have a deficit. What typically happens, because we aren't far enough along in our long-term financial planning to actually have a set 5-year financial plan, we revisit each year. So the future year's municipal taxes are to balance our budget with only the information that we know. There's always things that come in the future, whether it be grant funding for things or extra expenses that come in the future. So the increase that you see in the municipal tax revenue in 2022, 2023 and future, that's only to balance our budget. We'll be revisiting that when we do this same budget discussion next year for our 5-year financial plan.
Okay, so I noticed that like 2022, 2023, those are about 2%, but I just am a little concerned about this 2021 to 2022 because again, it's just lower than 7%. So should we be watching our spending for 2021 to warn ourselves about that 7%? Is that something that we need to be very careful of this year, or is there funding that we could use from COVID funding that will come in? Just kind of give us a heads up on what our year should look like for 2021 in preparation, so that it is not such an impact on taxpayers.
So actually, part of what you're saying is part of the problem. We're significantly reducing a lot of our budget for 2021 in anticipation of COVID. We're we're planning for a normal year in 2022. If we were having a normal year this year, we would likely be recommending a higher than 1.1% tax increase. But as we're anticipating, slower campgrounds, slower rec centers, slower, we're actually decreasing our budget in 2021. So yes, you're right in a sense, but it's because we're considering that this year that it looks worse next year. Yes, we do have the COVID relief funding that will likely come into play next year as well, which again would reduce the impact to taxpayers should council choose to use that funding next year as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments from council? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. I want someone to move that the financial plan bylaw number 2021-001 be adopted. Who will so move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Leach. Discussion? Okay, I see there being none. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, staff. We'll move on to utility rates bylaw. Now, for the sake of verbiage, well, the first one we'll do is a water connection and regulations bylaw number 68, 1997, amendment bylaw number 2021-007. Staff recommends that water connection and regulations bylaw number 68, 1997, amendment bylaw number 2021-007 be introduced and read a first time and a second time and a third time. Who will move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Hoppel. Discussion? I see none. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. The water connection and regulations bylaw number 428, 1984, amendment bylaw number 2021-008. Staff recommends that the water connection and regulations bylaw number 428, 1984, amendment bylaw number 2021-008 be introduced and read a first time and a second time and a third time. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Discussion? Councillor Leach.
Yeah, I just have a question for clarity's sake. The utility rate, the 10-year plan, that bylaw where it was supposed to increase 9% in 2020 and then 9% in 2021. So we're freezing that and having the increase at 1.1%, correct?
Through the mayor, that's what this resolution would do, yes.
So my question to further that, sorry, I just wanted to clarify to make sure I'm on the right bylaw. And then, so that 10-year plan bylaw, so we would, because we had discussed bringing it back to the table at one point, or to relook at that 10-year plan, I guess. And this is just to freeze it again. It's not rewriting that whole 10-year plan. Like, that's something that would have to come back to the table at a future date.
Through the mayor, so the 10-year bylaw was from 2013 to 2023. So okay. Regardless, there would only be 2 years left of it. This would be 1.1% for 2021. Excuse me, there's a little bit more research asking the corporate officer whether that old bylaw has to be rescinded or not. It was a little unclear. Should it need to be, it would. So it wouldn't, the plan is not for it to go back into effect next year, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at in a roundabout weird way, but thank you. Okay.
Okay. Any more questions, comments from council? Okay, we're discussing the water connection and regulations bylaw. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried, thank you. We'll move to the sewer connection and regulations bylaw. Staff recommends that sewer connection and regulation bylaw number 430/1984, amendment bylaw number 2021-009 be introduced and read a first time and a second time and a third time. Who will so move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Hoppel. Any questions, comments? Councillor Hoppel?
Hi, thank you. Through the mayor. Okay, so how do we get these numbers that increase a beauty salon per chair by $218, but I don't know, the hospital per bed goes down $6? It just seems bizarro to me.
Through the mayor, it seems bizarro to a lot of us. Unfortunately, I wasn't anywhere near here when that bylaw or these bylaws were developed. I can't speak to how the rates were calculated originally. But once we get to the point of consumption-based billing, that will no longer be an issue. People will be charged for what they're using. So if a beauty salon actually uses that much more than a barbershop, it'll be apparent in their actual usage of the utilities. But I can't speak to where they originally came from.
So then, is that something that we can change, like now?
Absolutely, yes.
Because I just find that increase, that $218, as opposed to every single other increase there, except for, you know, I don't know. It just, like, some of them go down, some of them go up. It's just seems like such a crazy system. And even in the schools, they go down $2 per student. But I don't know. I would like to see that beauty salon change, at least until I think that 218 is just too much money.
If I could, sorry, just interrupt for a minute. We are doing, and as part of council's strategic objectives, is doing a full-fledged dive into all of our fees and charges. Our corporate officer is currently working on a new fees and charges bylaw. All of this will be incorporated into the new bylaw. I absolutely am not saying that council is not free to change any of those rates, but until we actually have a better idea of what the rate should be, I'm a little hesitant to recommend that we slice and dice rates at this time, particularly since we've developed a financial plan which has now been adopted based on these rates in the bylaw.
Okay, Councillor Hoppel, what is your plan desire? As I say, from that perspective, the CFO has to go back in and make the changes as slight as they are.
Well, right. For me, I can't approve it because, you know, just that one $218 increase is just, in my eyes, it's too much compared to everybody else. It's unfair. And I feel that, you know, we may not get to that in a period of time where that won't have some effect on places that are already struggling to stay afloat. So, you know, I mean, per chair, that's a lot. When a barbershop goes up $3, now I get the barbershop, nobody washes the man's hair, I don't think, but I mean, yeah, I would rather see that go up as to be relevant with everybody else, $18.
If I could interrupt again, I'm sorry. These rates in the bylaw are not the increases. Those are the rates. So it's not increasing by $418 or $218. It's increasing by 1.1% over what they paid last year.
Okay, but on the last one that I looked at, the beauty salon per chair was $250. That was a rate, and now it's 418. Like on page 84.
I could have made a typo on that. Absolutely. The final rate would be 1.1% more than the rate in 2020.
So, anything else, Councillor Hoppel? What we can do, though, is if we're assured it's a 1.1%, I'll get Councillor Wiebe is next to talk. If it happens to be a typo, it can be fixed, obviously. Councillor Wiebe, go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking it's two different things. One is a water connection and one is a sewer connection. Is that not right?
Oh.
It's a connection. It's not a usage thing. Is that what you're looking at?
Perhaps, yes. As long as if it just goes by the 1.1%, I'm fine with that. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I was just looking at the water connection. It was the only one that seemed to be a huge difference.
Yeah, I think maybe that's right. Thanks, Councillor Wiebe.
Councillor Wiebe.
Okay,
I feel better with that 1.1%. Good.
You're good?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Questions? Good discussion. Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll move to garbage collection and regulation bylaw. That staff recommends that the garbage collection and regulation bylaw number 2962007 amendment bylaw number 2021-10 be introduced and read a first time, a second time, and a third time. Who will move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Questions, comments, discussion? Okay, there being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to parcel tax bylaws 12.3. We're looking at the water service parcel tax bylaw number 2021-011. Staff recommends that water service parcel tax bylaw number 2021-11 be introduced and given first reading and second reading and third reading. Who will move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Discussion, questions? Councillor Howe?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I just want to make sure I fully understand that the parcel tax that's for all properties, not just those that are vacant, right? I just want to make sure I completely understand this.
Through the mayor, parcel taxes are in the case of these parcel taxes, they're charged to every property that has the ability to connect to the system.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay, there being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Move the sewer service parcel tax bylaw number 2021-12. Staff recommends that the sewer service parcel tax bylaw number 2021-12 be introduced and given first reading, be given second reading, and be given third reading. Who will move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Wiebe. Any discussion, questions? There being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Ms. LaRue.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to make you have to talk that much for one thing.
I did take a few shortcuts, so thank you.
Thank you.
And these will be coming back to us, obviously, for final adoption, doesn't it?
That's correct, and I'll verify those rates for Councillor Hoppel.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 14.1, Mayor Report. Not much to report other than February 10th, I had a meeting with our MP, Brad Viss, who made his first visit through COVID in person. And that's about it for me. Councillor Hoppel?
Yeah, not much for me either, other than the February 1st council meeting. I had a few visits at the district office. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone out there for doing their part, wearing, you know, with COVID, wearing a mask and hand washing and social distancing and not traveling. I think everybody in Lillooet is really doing a great job. You know, I can't wait till this COVID takes a turn for the good and our world and our meetings can return to normal and I can sit with you guys face to face and I don't have any computer issues and no update issues, no iPad issues. Yeah, I need our old normal. But yep, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Hoppel. Councillor Howe?
Hello. Okay, so it's been a very slowish start to February. Outside of our regular council meetings, February 16th, which would be today, started off the morning with the Tourism Lillooet meeting. And they are looking forward to their AGM on February 25th at 10 a.m. So I'm sure good things will come from there and some additions to the board. So I'm looking forward to seeing what transpires. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Leach?
Yeah, I have nothing to report, honestly, outside of our regular stuff. It's been a very quiet, well, yeah, it's just been quiet and cold, and I've done nothing. That's all I've got to say. So
Well,
easy report.
You just keep those Amazon parcels coming our way. That's all.
I was gonna say I'm busy with that, but I mean that's not really much to
Okay.
report, right? Other than to confirm that people are staying home.
Great, thanks. Councillor Weeb?
I'm at home washing masks. I attended a couple of closed Gold Country meetings, so nothing to report on them. There was 2, and I attended my first SLRD draft financial planning meeting with our area directors and shared budget type thing. I'm learning a little more on service agreements and grant and aid, and other than that, I'm here this evening with bells on.
Thank you, Councillor Weeb. We move to item 16.1, CAO report. Mr. Deniger?
Thank you. I'd like to report that we were successful in our NDIT grant application for economic activity. So we will be able to continue funding the hard work that Suzanne Denbach started last July. So she only had a little less than half a year to get things going and had grand plans. And she has actually continued to work for us without pay until today. So we're very thankful for that. So the funding can be used for both her and related activities such as advertising and so forth. So we'll be working on that for the rest of the year. So we're up to about $123,000 in grant funding so far this year. It's a good trend. I'd like to keep it going. Other than that, just working on relationship building with the SLRD. And as Councillor Weeb mentioned, that was a good presentation from the Director of Finance last week. And I followed up that meeting with a request to her if she'd be willing to give a Finance 101 from a regional district's perspective, because they work under a very different framework than municipalities. And I think it'd be very useful for all of council and senior staff to get a better understanding of how they need to do their processes, which take much longer and are far more involved, which hopefully they'll help us help them get the funding that we'll then ask them to give us. So that's sort of work going on. But I'll end there and let you carry on with your evening.
Great, thank you. Yes, I'm glad you added and for them to return the funding to us. Essentially, from what I see now from last year's budget, is it's almost a wash. What we send them, we get back. So we're relying on Councillor Wiebe and yourself, Mr. Dennegar, to up the ante and get a little bit more than what we provide to them. Let us see. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Dennegar. New business, item 17.1. Councillor, how would you like to table the letter of support in the City of Vernon?
Yes, thank you. Are we all familiar with the letter and the ask?
Right.
I can read it if you'd like, just sort of to prep you guys for what I'd like to bring up regarding the letter.
Yeah, a bit of summary, I guess. Don't have to read the whole thing, but just to summarize and essentially and where you wish to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Let me just pull it up. Bear with me for one moment, please. I swear, I should just go with the digital copy. It's so much easier to find. Ah, here we are. Okay, so page 48. All right. So I'm actually going to read their whereases. So whereas cost, okay, so the letter of support for the Corporation of City of Vernon, so they're going to start with whereas cost is a significant barrier to people accessing contraception, particularly to people with low incomes, youth, and people from marginalized communities. And whereas providing free prescription contraception has been shown to improve health outcomes for parents and infants by reducing the risks associated with unintended pregnancy, and is likely to reduce direct medical costs on the provincial health system. And whereas contraceptive methods such as condoms or vasectomies are available at low cost, no cost, or are covered by BC's medical service plan, whereas all contraceptive methods for people with uteruses, such as birth control pills, intrauterine devices or hormone injections, have high upfront costs, making access to contraception unequal and gendered. So they're requesting now, they're requesting our support. So they're going to write to the Provincial Minister of Finance, the Provincial Minister of Health, and the Premier of BC, and the local MLA, supporting universal no-cost access to all prescription contraception available in BC under the Medical Services Plan. And they're asking for all municipalities' support for this as well. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, and what's your pleasure?
Okay.
What are you seeking? As I say, I'm assuming you moved to table it. We'll need a seconder, and then we should discuss it. Who will second the tabling of this letter?
Mr. Mayor, it doesn't need a second to discuss it. It's on the floor for discussion.
Okay.
If there would like to be a resolution on this item, then I would ask that a councillor bring it as a notice of motion for the next meeting to be put on the regular agenda with a proper staff report to accompany it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry for that. Go ahead, Councillor Howe.
Sure. So upon Mr. Taylor's advice, I would like to resolute the a notice of motion to have this brought to the table for further discussion next meeting. Did I get that correct? Sorry, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, you can just make a declaration that you'll be bringing forward a motion at the March 1st meeting, I believe it is.
Okay, so
And you don't need to vote on a notice of motion. You just need to state it, and then staff will bring it forward.
Ah, okay. So notice of motion. I declare that I will be bringing this to the table.
So there's no need for a seconder then?
There's not. This is just basically a heads up to council that there will be a discussion and a resolution on this item at the next meeting.
Okay. Councillor Huffel, you have some questions, comments?
No, it's okay. I was just wondering, like, if something, oh, well, I guess I do then. Would something like this just go to SILGA and go to UBCM as per, like, I get that they're asking for all municipalities to write their support as well, but would this not just go to SILGA and UBCM?
I'm not sure, but I'm assuming the letter asks for a letter of support, and I assume that's where Councillor Howe is heading us for. Is that correct, Mr. Taylor?
It does look like that this is a SILGA resolution. So I do believe that they're just casting the net to try and politic for the resolution before the actual event by putting everyone's letters behind theirs in their submission package. So yes, I do believe that's what's going on here.
Then I would suggest that Councillor Howe and Councillor Wiebe do some horse trading before we consider. Any other comments or any other input from council? Now, do we have to have a resolution to accept this correspondence?
Just to accept as information, please, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Then I require someone to move that the correspondence letter of support from City of Vernon be included and received for information. Who will move? Councillor Howe, second. Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to 17.2, and that's a letter from Christy Clark regarding CN Community Board grants. Councillor Huppel.
Okay, so just a bit of an overview. So Christy Clark is retired, and in her retirement, she's been chairing the CN Community Board. Their board directs funding to smaller community-based organizations across the province, focusing in particular on communities that host CN rail infrastructure. With an average donation from $5,000 to $10,000 for each organization, they support things like building bike trails, rehabilitation of cemeteries, supporting hospice, funding women's shelters, and lots of others. So I know that Councillor Leach had a good idea with CN support with regards to our potential upgrade for Downton Park, but that project is not shovel ready. So my question is can we still apply for the funding towards a project that doesn't require so much shovel ready process, such as the rehabilitation of cemeteries such as ours, you know, the tombstones and need lifting and things like that? Is there something that we have that we would like to apply for this for?
Okay, if I can add before staff comments on it. Obviously, Christy Clark made, and I have a copy of it and put it in the file in terms of our UBCM calls to the various ministries, because we were chasing after obtaining land at a dollar par value or a $2 value, being that the rail yard, which is no longer being used, and the abandonment by CN. Obviously, the reply we got back was essentially they're willing to consider selling at market value, which is a load of hooey as far as I'm concerned, especially in this time. So it's a political venture. But let's be aware that Christy Clark, when she was the premier, she put herself on record that by selling BC Rail to CN, so many of the small communities along the line were going to benefit. And I feel at the appropriate time, we've got to strategically try and push back without embarrassing too much. What's in it for Lillooet? And I want Lillooet to benefit from it. And there's a whole slew of land there that could be considered. And there's other things, and I think you make good points, Councillor Hoffel. There are a vast number of things that we as a community should benefit from it. But Christy Clark went out and stuck her neck on the line saying, our communities will benefit by them selling BC Rail. And it's obvious we didn't. In fact, we've been harmed, if anything, by it. So I just bring that up. Mr. Denegar, you'd like to comment?
Yeah, so that's definitely a much larger political item you've just mentioned, and I won't delve into that. But yeah, I'm not aware of anything off the top of my mind that this would fit with, that we're actually shovel ready for. As simple as something might be, it still needs to be shovel ready to some degree. But I could definitely ask staff to rack their brains over the next week and see if there's anything that's ready to go this year in the next short period of time that might fit into this program. I do believe it's an annual program nonetheless, like many grant programs. So if we don't come up with something that meets the deadline of this, well, we haven't dug into it too much yet.
So, but I mean, like lifting the graveyards, you know, like the sinking markers, that would be part of something that Public Works would do on an ongoing basis anyways. I'm just wondering if we can get some funding for that. However, I also don't want to step on our potential to get a higher amount or something greater from CN by taking, you know, like the secondary little prize here. But I don't think that lifting graveside sinking markers really need a shovel ready project because it's something that we do anyways.
Yeah, and then that's where I could ask staff if there's something like that that makes sense. That is built into our operating costs already. So I don't know how much of an impact that would be versus some other project. And you're absolutely right that if they pay out to the district for something like this, that may very well decrease our chances of getting greater funding in the future for a project that we don't normally budget for on an ongoing basis. So a special project that council may have in mind, where it may also be more likely to get more funding because it's something that's visually exciting or appealing or has a greater visual impact on the town and everyone in it.
Right.
Versus
so
something people are used to having done anyways, right?
Yeah. So it was basically just a question I had, not so much a recommendation or anything. I just wanted to find out where it kind of was and where it fit in. Thank you.
No, there's some good points there, but keep in mind, there's a vast lost opportunity cost by what CN did. And realistically, what we could or should do is, I mean, look at the jobs that we had, local jobs in Council Beach, what, 5, 6, or as high as 10 or something at some point in time. And what I think we should do is very methodically and subtly at the right point in time and say, look, guys, here's what the Premier said back then in selling the rail. You failed. Therefore, over the next 10 years, our lost opportunity revenues or type of thing is this. And we sure as heck would like something back in return. Now, how we do that strategically, obviously, is a bit political, and it takes a bit of sitting down and calculation. I just feel that I think we're crazy. Now, I met with the mayor of Hunter Mile, and the mayors along the line, we should really think about God. But then I look at it, you know, from the sense, when I see how BC Rail operated between Prince George and the Lower Mainland, and the majority of employees actually like Lillooet and ended up retiring here. So there's definitely, I feel, a central or a focus that we should capitalize on and say, you really hurt us, CN. You hurt us. You hurt us big time. And I want something back, but that's just me. Yes, Councillor Hoffel.
Well, I agree with you, but let's do it then before CN is long gone and Lillooet's just, a thought in the past. Like, let's do something and approach that.
Yeah, you're right. The thing is, CN lost us the jobs. The land is BC Rail still the province. So we got to deal with them if we want any of that land turned over. But CN took the business away from us, and we got to figure out a good way in which we want to claw some of that back. Good. Anything else from council? Good discussion. Do we just accept that as a correspondence acceptance, or Councillor Hoffel, you want to see something?
No, like I said, it was just more of a question to see, what we were doing with funding, if we'd already, if we had anything on the go, if, just a question. That's it.
Okay, but I think it brings up a good point that we got to pay some attention here. So I need someone to move that the correspondence be accepted from CN, letter of Christy Clark, CN Community Board grants. Who will move to accept? Councillor Hoffel, second Councillor Howe. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Carry. Councillor Leach, did you have something to add? No? Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. We'll move to item 18.1. The meeting is open to questions from the media and public. Mr. Taylor, how are we sitting?
Nobody has indicated in the chat, but I will open it up for about 15 seconds. If anybody would like to ask a question, please turn on your webcam. "15 seconds is longer than I thought. 10 seconds will suffice. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, folks. I need someone to move that the February 16th, 2021 regular council meeting be adjourned. Who will do so move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Hoffel. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Good meeting. Much appreciated. I hope nobody's zoomed out yet or teamed out yet. We still got a ways to go. Good night, everyone.